I'm on Dartmoor and it's very windy.
After staying at my parents' house over Christmas, I headed off on New Year's Eve to go exploring. I wanted to start the year off waking up in my van, and parked on the road outside my parents' house didn't really count for me. That evening was super foggy, so I had quite a lot of fun getting to the spot I'd picked for the night, down roads I didn't know with very little visibility.
This is the most sky I've seen in days. That makes me happy.
I spent the next week exploring on Dartmoor and popping into Plymouth to catch up with friends. If you've been following for a while, you probably know I lived in Plymouth before moving to Scotland, so I know the area a bit. But I also used to spend my holidays heading up to Scotland, so there's plenty of local places I've never explored. Dartmoor National Park covers a decent chunk of southern Devon and offers lots to explore, certainly more than I fitted into my week, though some of that was due to hiding from the weather. The national park bylaws mean that you can't stay in a vehicle overnight on the moors, which feels like a shame in the winter when there's no one around, but I can understand why it's needed as it gets overrun in the summer. There are a few spots near the moor that are fine for overnight off-grid stays as such, so I used those and headed onto the moor during the day. There are also plenty of campsites for people wanting to stay on the moors. I didn't check whether any are open during the winter, as campsites are generally a bit out of my price range. The rocks at Hound Tor might not look much like dogs to you and me, but the legend of their origin is that they were hounds turned to stone by a vengeful witch, and this legend is thought to have inspired Arthur Conan Doyle's The Hound of the Baskervilles. In the Sherlock Holmes adventure, the detective investigates reports of a red-eyed hellhound stalking the foggy moors. It was even used as a location for the BBC show Sherlock. It was a pretty crazy weather day of hail, snow, wind and rain when I visited, and I was sat in the back of Silver with the heater running whilst trying to edit last week's video. When the sky cleared for a few minutes in the afternoon, I took the opportunity to walk up to the Tor, battling the wind to stay upright and hold on to my camera. At Shaugh Bridge there's this lovely path that goes up and up and up the hill and eventually pops out by some awesome trees and lovely views. There were quite a few crazy narrow roads on Dartmoor that you probably wouldn't get a large van down, and a few that felt like I should have been in a 4x4 to drive them. Wistman's Wood is near 2 bridges in the centre of Dartmoor and is a lovely pocket of ancient woodland, mostly consisting of oak trees which are dripping in moss and lichen. Things I love, as you may have noticed. The ground is mostly boulders, also covered in moss, and a variety of interesting tiny things. The wood is thought to support about 120 species of lichen. How cool is that? Apparently the name may have been derived from the dialect word wist. Not sure I'm saying that correctly. The word meant eerie or uncanny, pixie-led and haunted. I'm inclined to think there may be pixies living there. I did eventually get a couple of good sunsets, which made up for all the cloudy grey days we've had lately. Lydford Gorge is the deepest river gorge in southwest England, with a 30-metre high waterfall called the White Lady. I headed off for a walk that I thought would take in this stunning waterfall and allow me to also check out the Devil's Cauldron. I mean, with a name like that, who wouldn't want to check it out? But it turns out a lot of the site is closed for maintenance and safety during the winter, so that wasn't possible. I love visiting places at this time of the year, as I often have them to myself. The downside is not everything is open. The caves in the gorge were occupied by a gang of violent thugs known as the Gubbins in the 17th century. They were there for many years, which meant everyone else stayed away, until finally the law clamped down and the Gubbins were driven out.
If I came here at a slightly different time of the year, I think I would want to go in the water because it looks beautiful. And look at the colour of it.
It's so clear. It looks lovely.
I sort of stumbled across St Michael's Church on my way to Lydford Gorge. The sun was shining on the hill as I drove past, which lit the building up and caught my eye. So I took a wee detour to check it out. It's a 12th century church on top of Hound Tor, and is still in active use. You can go in and look around, but not being a fan of churches, I was quite content to enjoy the architecture and views from outside. After my busy week exploring, I headed back to my parents' place to work on some projects before I start my journey north. More on that to come in the next video.